Getting together with Josh Holliday as we talk Cowboy baseball, Oklahoma State, the Big 12 Conference champions. And let's just start with this. This is a stat we've talked about some, but here we are at the end of the year, and here we are. There are 4 teams as we end this year that have been ranked in the top 25 in the RPI the last 5 years in a row. It's Arkansas, it's Vanderbilt, it's Tennessee, and it's Oklahoma State. Sustained success, that pretty much says it.
Yeah, I think that's a real compliment to this kind of group of players. You know, when you look at the kids that have come through here in that period of time and their predecessors who made coming here appealing, it's a great compliment to their consistency. I think it's a real compliment to the program and the investment in baseball here at Oklahoma State by our administration. Obviously, to be winning at a high clip, to be winning amongst the nation's best, and to be doing it for a consistent window, but also at such a high level, there's a lot of really good days going on around here. There's a lot of really good moments. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of kids reaching potential. And there's a lot of people leaving here better than they came in. And that's a really good thing. I think for us, what these last 4 years and obviously over the last 12, kids and teams have continued to elevate the standard of what we're chasing here. And to be mentioned with a program like Arkansas, which has been excellent, a program like Vanderbilt, which is excellent. You start talking about some of the very best programs in the United States. And so our program holds a really strong footing in consistency, in development, in competing for championships. Our players continually put us in the race to win the Big 12 regular season and put us deep into the conference tournament year after year, which has set us up for excellent postseason opportunities. And those are things that you can't take for granted because there's a lot of movement, a lot of change, a lot of things have gone on over the last 4 or 5 years that have made the college scene a little bit hard to predict. And our kids have done an amazing job during that time of just being rocks for us.
Full confession here, we had our first meeting for the first television broadcast, would have been end of February, looking at the season. And you were already dealing with some injuries by that time. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit, I left that meeting thinking, I'm not sure how good this team will be. Yeah. Well, it turned out to be really, really good. Was there a point in time where maybe it hit you? It's like, you know what, we did have a lot of newness on the mound. We had a lot of new position guys, but we're going to be just fine. I mean, was there a moment or a period of time where it's just kind of hit you? It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
We're going through a lot of stuff, but we're okay.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I think there were moments for me about that time where on a day-to-day basis, just trying to see what this team could become and help them get started to chasing that was a challenge. I don't know what crazy coach thought 8 games on the road to open the season was a good idea, but it certainly challenged us early. It certainly put us in crisis management mode way earlier in the season than, say, a lot of teams. The injuries were tough. Tough because you hate to see your kids go down, but also tough because there were talented players that came out of the lineup. The response of the ball club when that happened was guys stepped up. Being on the road early and taking some losses and having some things exposed, guys responded correctly. They made adjustments. The team rallied around the idea that, hey, we're not good enough yet. We've got to make changes. I thought the coaching staff did a tremendous job of staying very, very teaching-oriented while still competing to win games, and that's one of the reasons why you saw the emergence of numerous guys. I mean, when I look at the success of this team, and you look at the distance covered and the ground that guys gain, I look at a Robert Kranz, who was a nice middle reliever at Wichita State, became one of the very best relief pitchers in the country. Tommy Molsky was a swingman at Penn State, a little bit in the pen, a little bit in the rotation, but not a ton of win-loss success. He became a dynamite relief pitcher here. You look at a Sam Garcia who had an earned run average close to 8 in his final year at High Point. He comes in as one of the most consistent Friday night starters in our conference. Brian Holliday comes in a little bit of an unknown to the outside world. Now, I knew about him because I was the one who recruited him, but I don't know that anyone understood what we were getting. The courage and tenacity and competitive leadership he provided was sensational. So I look at the work that Rob did with the pitching staff. I look at the work those kids did with themselves. I look at the growth and emergence of so many guys, and that's a real that's a real story there. Those are great things that went on, and not to leave anyone out, but just those stories come off the top of your mind because that's part of the newness that you spoke about. Where's this ball club going to come from? I think the leadership that emerged on the position player side, the everyday lineup. I thought Aiden Miola was an unbelievable leader for this team. He played through injury, but he played gritty and tough, and he unified the group in so many ways. Obviously, Schubert battling back from a very difficult injury and surgery. His last 30 games are as good as I've ever seen in college baseball. I've not been around many stretches where a guy is homering literally in every single game. Zach Earhart was dynamite. We saw a return to the Zach Earhart we saw as a freshman. Just dynamite player. Carson Benj, I don't know what else you can say.
Yeah.
To have a season like he had, both at the plate, in the outfield, and on the mound, remarkable player. Lane Forsythe was the most steady hand at shortstop you could hope to have, and his defense provided our infield great stability. And the emergence of some young players. I thought Avery Ortiz and Colin Ritchie's emergence was a lot of fun to watch. I thought those kids showed already they dug in and contributed in a big way and showed great promise for the future. And you have kids like Tyler Wolford, who had an unfortunate wrist injury, came back. Brugge had his moments where he was excellent, and obviously we know what he's capable of doing moving forward. So, up and down the lineup, up and down the staff, up and down the roster, great examples of kids stepping up. Ian Doherty emerging behind the plate in the second half was a huge part of our success. So those are all just, I think, examples of when players take ownership of their performance and do it on behalf of the team, then the team has a chance to find itself. And to your point, those questions were very much on the tip of the tongue in late January, early February as we entered the season and started competing.
You were talking about some of the guys that you brought in as transfers: Kranz, Molsky, obviously Sam Garcia. Sam Garcia at High Point last year, his ERA was between 7 and 8. Brian Holliday was unknown. Obviously, Molsky and Kranz were not necessarily super prominent guys. Lane Forsythe, after a good start at Mississippi State, had some tough times. Yet all of that worked.
Yeah.
What did you learn, if anything, about how to go about working the transfer portal and how it paid off this year with guys that, again, these were not guys that were headline-grabbing guys at the beginning of the year, but by the end they were.
Yeah.
So what'd you learn?
Well, I think, and going back to before we move on to that question, the emergence of Gabe Davis. I mean, Gabe from the rotation, 7 or 8 starts where he learned a lot, and then back in the pen at the end where he was dominant. So what did I learn about the transfer portal? I think the kids that we're speaking about here, they all registered with us because they had good makeup. We thought there was something about them as people and as ball players, a strong desire to still learn, a burning desire to continue to play. And we thought we were getting kids that were actually on their way up, and I think that's what you're trying to assess. Yeah, some of the kids that are transferring, they have a body of work that speaks for itself, and the high profile guys where, someone thinks I'm just going to get someone else's All-American and make him mine. Mm-hmm. Our boys came in here with a purpose. They came in here and chose Oklahoma State because they identified it as a place they could get better. And they still had a strong burning passion to be part of a winning team. And so their makeup, along with their physical abilities, gave us reason to believe these were the right kids. And I'm really thankful that they chose Oklahoma State. What a blessing to have those guys, even for some of them, if it was just for a year, because they felt right at home the minute they got here. And it's a compliment, too, to the returning players to welcome in their new teammates and help guys come here and feel at home and feel wanted and needed right away. And I think that definitely happened.
I go back to that first meeting we had in February, and I couldn't tell at the time whether you were excited or stressed about the fact that you said, I'm going to have to do a lot of teaching with this group. A lot of young guys, a lot of new guys. Mm-hmm. And so there was probably some of both.
Both, yeah.
But at the end, was it really rewarding to do it the way you did it, having to do a lot of teaching and having to do a lot of sort of morphing and molding, and then see what happened at the back end?
Yeah, it was. This was a fun team to coach and a group of players that I enjoyed as much as any in a long time. And that's not to say you don't love all your teams, because you do.
Sure.
But what this team gave to each other each day and what they created was a simple focus and a willingness to just stay with it. And didn't have a lot of distractions, didn't have a lot of interference. They continued to stay with the process. That's such an overused statement, but what they did is they showed up every day to work. They had great, consistent energy. Our staff, sports medicine, sports performance, did an amazing job of keeping them fresh. So we had a group that continued to enjoy what we were doing and stayed on the field. I thought that was a huge gain in our ability to lead them. Was just the way they stayed with things and stayed fresh and stayed strong and kept working at it. So there was never a day where I looked at them and felt like I was ever losing them. Every single day of the season, I felt like we were gaining more and more with them. And that's an awesome feeling, because there's some years where holding on to what we had or building it, you felt like it was slipping away. And this group was just the opposite. Every day it felt like we were adding more. And so I think the environment that we had, where kids were just staying with it and growing and continuing to work and discovering things and fighting through things, and some of the streaks that guys got on late and the consistency, it was a lot of fun. And that's a real, I think as a coach, it's a thank you. It's a thank you to the players for obviously taking what we're doing, but also allowing it to be fun, allowing it to be enjoyable. And I think some of that stress or concern that you sensed in my voice, it turned into action as time went on and ended up being a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Another interesting thing about this team to me, especially as we got into April, was how it could sort of morph itself at a given time into whatever it needed to be. And when I say that, you had Schubert go down with injury. Hey, Colin Ritchie, freshman, you're going to play left. Yep. Miola played second. He played third. Mm-hmm. Wolford's in. He's out. Benj goes from bullpen to starter. Yep. Ian Doherty, hey, we need you to jump in and take the catching. Zach Earhart, hit between or around these lefties, and you know what? Go ahead and hit some home runs.
Yeah.
I mean, what was interesting to me was it was almost as if, okay, whatever the challenge or task was at a given time, or as the season went along, they just sort of recreated themselves and said, "That's cool, I can do that." I mean, did you feel that way?
Well, no doubt, and that was the key to our success. I mean, I think Ian's emergence behind the plate was a huge part of this team taking that next step. A two-catcher system in season with really no third catcher is a tough one to manage, because you don't have the ability to substitute much. Usually the catcher who's in the game has to stay in the game. So he and Charlie did a great job of defending the position. I thought Ian on the offensive side really came on. Zach Earhart proved to be such a huge piece of that ability to pivot, because he was so good against left-hand pitching, and we faced so many left-hand pitchers that he was a huge part of our lineup. I thought Miola's ability to hit behind Schubert and Benj and provide an RBI mentality and kind of a little bit of an amazingly strong competitive face. He handled himself so good. And when Brugge was hot, he cleaned up a lot of base hits and a lot of runners down in that 5, 6, 7 hole, because the middle of the order was on base so much. So I thought all those kids and their abilities to emerge, as you mentioned, adjust as roles needed to be adjusted for the good of the team. It was absolutely fun to watch, but it was absolutely necessary, and quite honestly, amazing at how well they did it. And talk about Carson Bench for a minute. You never want to sit here and overstate something, but I don't know that people can appreciate just what he did all year long, both offensively. He's an amazing right fielder, but also the flexibility on the mound to close games out for half the year and then move into the starting rotation. I mean, just a unique, one-of-a-kind type of player, a really, really special player, and hopefully, the draft this year will recognize that special talent.
As a final thought, when you look at the body of work, there's a lot of really cool things that happened. Mm-hmm. You beat Oklahoma 4 out of 5 times. Mm-hmm. Last time you'll be conference competitors against one another. Some great non-conference wins, like Arkansas, for example. You swept Texas Tech. You won the Big 12 tournament title. I mean, when you add it all up, when you look at what happened over the course of the entire season, there was a lot of really cool things that happened, with a lot of question marks going into the year. But then when you add the tab up, there's a lot there.
Well, I think, Dave, one of the most important things that you try to do as a coach at the end of the year is really celebrate and appreciate everything that your team did. Understanding, yes, you always are striving for more. And when your standards have become as high as ours have, where anything less than a national championship and competing for one, you feel as if you've still haven't reached the ultimate goal. What a mistake it would be to not look at a season like the one we just had, where a conference championship was won, where countless new faces broke into the lineup, where countless players excelled, where countless crowds walked in here and broke attendance records, where a group of kids finished hosting a regional for the third time in 3 years. That hadn't been done since 84, 85, 86. When things go on in a program like this that hadn't been done in close to 40 years, and players are putting their names in record books, you have to appreciate and enjoy what these young men are giving us, even if you continue to strive for more. You have to, because if you don't, you're really missing an unbelievable show. And as disappointed as they were, because we did have visions of playing for a title, they walked out of here proud. The fans have to be proud of what those kids gave us. You have to continue to see in these kids a team that represented us the right way. They were gritty, they were tough, they took on challenges, they overcame obstacles, they played with a confidence, but with a class as well. And, I think it's really important that we don't ever turn our nose up at winning conference championships and placing ourselves continuously in the conversations, one of the top 10, 15, 20 teams in the country. That's good stuff. And while we can always strive for more and pride ourselves in one day reaching that mountaintop, we have to cherish and celebrate the amazing effort of these kids.
It was a special year, and looking forward to next February. That's Josh Holliday, and we will see you soon.